Hi, I'm Ivan Dalovich. This is Culinary School Home Chef. And in this lesson, we're going to make an amazing dish together. Indigirka made with muksun, a classic of Yakut cuisine, and we'll present it in a striking, beautiful way on an ice block. In other words, the presentation will have a distinctly northern flair, just like I have here now. And now we're going to start cooking. Friends, today I'm going to make for you a classic dish of the northern people. I worked in the north for a long time. And I'll say this, it's the calling card of the Republic of Yakutia. The dish is called Indigirka, made with muksun. Why muksun? Well, because that's where it lives, in its natural habitat, and gracefully swims around. The dish is very simple, but we'll add a little bit of northern flair to it. We'll serve it on a nice plate, which we've already prepared. I'll explain how to prepare it. It's actually no trouble at all. Then we'll need the muksun itself. Preferably muksun, what they call podliotka in Yakutia, when the fish is heading to spawn. This usually happens in the fall. Late in the fall, closer to winter, when the fish builds up more fat and becomes tastier. The fattier the fish, the tastier the dish. I used muksun for this dish, but in principle, you can use any northern fish for it. Any whitefish. Actually, even if you don't have northern fish, you can use salmon as well. It will still be tasty, but not quite like with muksun. If we're talking about the classic version, then it's muksun or chir. For this dish, we use lightly salted fish, but actually, you can also use the fresh fish. That might even be better. But overall, if you don't have fresh fish, you can use this kind. I slightly froze it so that, first of all, it's easier to slice. Also, the flavor comes out better when the fish is slightly frozen. We'll also need some lingonberries. This is kind of a classic. Northern berries are traditional, meaning what's available in the north, along with pike caviar. You can also use any kind of caviar except salmon roe, because for this dish, caviar from muksun or chir would be a better fit, but it's hard to find in this case, so... Oh, and grayling caviar would be amazing too. So that's why we're using pike caviar. To make this kind of ice plate, first of all, we decorated it. We added thyme and lingonberries to give it that northern flair. We need to take a plate and a smaller plate. Once the ice sets, we just need to remove the smaller plate and add a little bit of water, and basically it will be ready. We'll have this kind of icy presentation. Now we can actually leave it just like this. In fact, it will look very beautiful. By the way, the plate pairs very harmoniously. Or we can take it out and place it on a flat plate. Or we can place it on some kind of wooden board. However, it's more convenient for you, or whichever way you think looks nicer, that's how we'll do it. So, to remove our ice mold, we need to flip the plate like this and run it under cold water, literally waiting until it loosens. And here we have it. A plate like this can be used to serve it, or you can leave it just like this in the plate. Alternatively, you can place it on a nice looking board under the plate. Ideally, put something underneath. For example, it could be a paper towel. This way you can kind of hide everything like this, and on a flat plate or even on a board, for instance. Even on a board, I think it looks really cool. Well, from here on, let your imagination guide you. You can do whatever you like. The plate itself turned out well. For serving, you could use a deeper one. Of course, you'd need deeper tableware, but the idea is clear. This is how you can surprise your guests with such an unusual dish and an original presentation. It seems like an ordinary dish, but with an unusual presentation. I put our plate in the freezer since the ice naturally melts and we don't want it to melt. we're going to prepare our actual dish. We'll start with the muksun, which is slightly frozen, as I already mentioned, and we'll cut it into random shards. Something like this, perhaps. Alright, let's slice it. By the way, there are some bones in here. You can trim the bones off like this, or use the tweezers beforehand and pull all the bones out with the tweezers if you come across with any. This way, this. As I already mentioned, is a signature dish of the Republic of Yakutia. I worked there for a year and a half and ate a lot of amazing, delicious fish. It really is very delicious there. And healthy too, most importantly. So we slice it like this. It's a very interesting region. I recommend visiting it if you can. So we slice it like this, and we'll need about 100 to 120 grams per person for a serving. It depends on how much you need and what kind of appetite you have, really. As I mentioned earlier, it's a signature dish of Yakutia. Indigirka. So why is it called Indigirka? Because there's a river in Yakutia called the Indigirka, and that's where they catch muksun. Well, muksun is also caught in the Lena River, but the Indigirka is a tributary of the Lena, the great Yakut river. So basically, originally this is a fisherman's dish made by the Yakuts who would catch fish, and basically right away, well, they caught it, cleaned it, and then immediately decided to, roughly speaking, eat it. It started as a salad. Some call it an appetizer. It depends on convenience. I think it's more an appetizer, as it seems too simple to be a salad. In my view, it's a good appetizer, but officially it's considered a salad. So this is how we cut everything up, making sure, of course, that no bones get in. As I said, overall, this amount is enough for one serving. Then the second main ingredient is onion. Onion, naturally, in Yakutia, there are issues with vegetables. So that's probably why there are few ingredients. But the most important ingredient here is the fish. It's what makes the dish. We also dice the onion, of course, a bit finer than the fish. For 120 grams of fish, about 20 grams of onion. It depends on personal taste. Some people might like more. By the way, you can also marinate the onion, although on the other hand, it will marinate on its own as we go through the process. Some people just add pre-marinated onions right away. But right now, I'm making the classic recipe. We will need a bowl. We put all into our bowl or plate. The third ingredient is lingonberries. Lingonberries add a bit of tartness. Hysterics, which naturally, since it's a berry, also gives a slight astringency. So we'll add about 10 grams of it here, and also place some on top when serving. Now we'll need a lemon. And squeeze it. Our lemon goes on the fish. As for the lemon, it depends on personal taste. Some like more, some less, but for me 10 grams of lemon juice is just right. Next, we add salt and black pepper. And just a tiny bit more of sunflower oil. We mix it all together. Also, I add a little bit of sugar to the Indigirka to balance out the acidity and all the flavors. Just a little. And now we can let it sit for a while. As I mentioned earlier, this is a cold dish. I would even put it in the freezer for about 2-3 minutes so it stays colder. The colder it is, the tastier, but not too much. So we've taken out our ice block and placed it on a nice looking plate. Notice how harmoniously it all looks. As I mentioned earlier, we can add various northern ingredients to the ice block. I would add, for right now we have thyme, although thyme also grows here, wild thyme. It grows in Yakutia, but you can add fir branches, you can add pine cones in here, freeze it all with the cones and fir, and you'll get this truly northern skillet-style dish, so-called. You could even say it has a restaurant-style presentation. By the way, this dish right here, you can try it in almost every restaurant in Yakutia, because any respectable restaurant in Yakutia that caters to tourists and curious visitors, each and every one of those local and popular restaurants has this very traditional dish, Indigirka. Now look, it's already soaked up the rich and delicious juices. And now we neatly lay out our fish on the ice. And we top off this dish with caviar. You don't have to be stingy with the caviar. The more the better. At this point it won't ruin the dish. But I'll add just enough to make it look nice. You can also sprinkle some berries on top. Just a little kind of for decoration. Alright, we've got the berries. And there we go. So basically we've finished preparing our dish. And I also want to give a little tip. To make this dish even more vibrant and flavorful, add some rich sour cream. It's not precisely and traditionally traditional, but it really, in a way that enhances the dish in a culinary sense. And it might even kind of refresh it a bit. I'm not sure how to explain it. So put about 10 grams of sour cream on the caviar, then mix it all together and give it a try. It will be very tasty. But, I'll repeat, this isn't done in the traditional version. Some people like it this way, some don't. As they say, it's a matter of personal taste. But I recommend you give it a try. And I suggest trying it both ways, with and without sour cream. And it's up to you to decide which way is better. But I should point out that the quality of the sour cream is very important. It should have a fat content of 25–30%. Not any brand works perfectly, but really, any rich sour cream will do, and then it will complement everything nicely. Bon appétit and enjoy cooking.